Everybody wants to blow up. But what happens when the hunger for fame turns dark? In hip-hop, we hear about grinding, hustling, and making it out the hood. But behind the lights and the stage, some rappers carried secrets that would shock their neighborhood and the world. This ain't about their tracks that top playlists. This is about the women who rode with them, loved them, and held them down, only to end up victims when ego, greed, and jealousy took over.
You killed my sister. Look at you, just sitting right there looking guilty as, because he's guilty, y'all. Look at his face. Look at his face, y'all.
These ain't just rumors or rap beasts. These are cold, real-life stories where fame and violence collided, and wives paid the price. In this video, I will break down the most disturbing stories of rappers who crossed the line and took out the very women closest to them, all chasing that so-called success. Let's begin with this story.
In the mid-hours of October 11, 2023, police were called to a home in DeKalb County, Georgia, for a report of a multiple shooting. When they arrived, they were met with a gruesome sight. 31-year-old pregnant Ratia Herd laid lifeless in her parents' driveway. She had been shot multiple times while unloading groceries from her car. More horrifying was her 8-year-old son had witnessed everything. As the investigation unfolded, police would uncover a horrifying truth. A popular rapper had killed his pregnant wife for refusing abortion. But what made this case even more unsettling was not only had he fled the scene, but while on the run, he would shamelessly go on a live video to taunt her family. Ratia Danielle Herd, known to her loved ones as Rain, was born on March 19, 1992 in DeKalb County, Georgia, USA. At just 31 years old, she was a devoted mother to her 2 children, including her 8-year-old son, who tragically witnessed her murder, and an unborn child who would never have the chance to know her. Ratia's world revolved around her children, and she always dreamed of providing them with the best life possible. Ratia had a deeply rooted connection with her family, particularly her parents. Yet this close-knit bond with her family couldn't shield her from what was coming. Ratia had an on-and-off relationship with Justin Rene Lewis, a man who would later become the source of her tragic end. Justin, who went by the stage name Mad Music Cali, was an aspiring rapper with big dreams.
Cali, believe that. You already know what it is. First off, you know it's Cali. Let me spit some game. I brought my main bitch up with my side bitch a chain. We just left out a bonus copping fists and things, kicks and things, co-side with the Knicks and things. Ballin' hard on the hater like a piston man, moving bricks from the wall.
Ratia, who supported him and believed in his talent, tried to stand by him despite the growing turbulence in their relationship. But what started as love soon turned darker. As the relationship went on, the arguments only grew worse. The passion that once brought them together eventually gave way to jealousy, possessiveness, and violence. Despite Ratia's best efforts to maintain peace for the sake of her children, the toxic nature of their relationship would ultimately lead to an irreversible tragedy. On October 11, 2023, at around 11:30 a.m., 2 months pregnant Ratia was in the driveway of her parents' home on Kelly Chapel Road in DeKalb County. She was unloading groceries from her car, her 8-year-old son by her side, when Justin Lewis arrived at the scene. Without any warning or provocation, he opened fire, shooting Ratia 5 times in front of her young son. The bullets struck her twice in the back, once in the chest, once in the leg, and finally once in the head, immediately leaving her lifeless on the ground. In an instant, Ratia's life was violently cut short, and her son, just a child, was left to process the unimaginable horror of witnessing his mother's murder. After committing the brutal act, Justin fled the scene. The DeKalb County Police quickly responded to the scene after receiving a 911 call. Upon arrival, they found Ratia's lifeless body in the driveway, surrounded by grieving family members. The police immediately launched a search for Justin Lewis. However, the tragedy would soon give way to a disturbing revelation. As the investigation began, investigators found that Justin had been verbally abusive and threatening toward Ratia in the weeks leading up to the murder. In the months prior to the fatal shooting, Ratia had broken up with Justin after he had threatened her life on several occasions. But what investigators found next would change everything. Before Justin had murdered Ratia Herd, he had a disturbing history of violence. His criminal behavior didn't start with Ratia, it stretched back to his previous marriage, where serious red flags about his violent tendencies had already been raised. In fact, it was his marriage to Sydney Dalcour that gave a haunting glimpse into Justin's true nature. In 2017, Sydney was found dead, shot in her car outside a New Orleans apartment complex. The case was never solved, and Justin was never charged. However, Sydney's family and friends had long suspected Justin's involvement, pointing to his abusive behavior as the key to understanding her death. Tragically, Sydney's sister, Tracy Dalcour, revealed the extent of the abuse. She described how Justin had beaten Sydney so badly that she was left with black eyes, needing hospitalization for severe injuries, including staples in her head. Tracy and other family members had warned Sydney to leave him, but Sydney, still believing Justin could change, chose to stay. However, this decision would lead to a devastating outcome.
So she was married to Justin for 5 years. He was really abusive to her. He fought her a lot, like he gave her black eyes.
As the investigation deepened, Tracy Dalcour's suspicions about Justin grew stronger. She knew in her heart that Sydney's death was likely tied to her toxic relationship with him. And ever since then, Sydney's family had lived with the belief that law enforcement had failed them, allowing a potential killer to roam free. But what investigators didn't realize was that this tragic oversight would soon come back to haunt Ratia. When Ratia Herd first met Justin Lewis, she had no idea about his dark past. At the time, he was an aspiring rapper looking to make a name for himself in the music industry. He had met with some big personalities, including DJ Khaled and Sean Diddy Combs, and seemed to have a bright future ahead.
This ain't South Central, but we menace to society. See, my old dogs taught me how to get away with robbery. I'm a convict. I can't be quite no democracy before I turn stick on my brother. I follow clean. What a real love at. Don't wait till they retire me. Same niggas up in my pictures, they probably plot on me. I see what niggas do for their clout and know the right and thing. You get you when you're down like a motherfucker sign of team. Money make the world go round. The border barrier, the boy niggas starving the hood. It's more tough.
Ratia had her own dreams and aspirations. She wanted someone to build a future with, and when she met Justin, she believed he could be the partner she had been waiting for. But she was mistaken. However, as their relationship progressed, Justin's controlling and violent nature began to show. The first signs of trouble appeared when Ratia found out she was pregnant. Unlike most fathers who might be thrilled by the news of a child on the way, Justin did not react with joy. Instead, he pressured Ratia to terminate the pregnancy, and when she refused, his behavior became more aggressive and intimidating. Just a few months before Ratia's murder, Justin threatened to kill her. According to Ratia's account, he pulled a gun on her, but the gun malfunctioned when the clip fell out. Despite the close call, Ratia did not report the incident to the authorities. It's likely that she believed things would get better or that she could handle the situation herself. But the truth was that Justin's behavior was only escalating. What had happened before was only a hint of the terror that followed. Had Ratia gone to the police, perhaps authorities would have been able to intervene before October 11, 2023. But Ratia, like many in abusive relationships, was trapped in a cycle of fear, hoping for change that never came. But despite his attempts to hide, what happened next shocked Ratia's family even more. Instead of showing remorse or fleeing the scene in fear, Justin took to social media to taunt Ratia's family. He accused them of spreading rumors about his involvement in her death, further inflaming the family's pain. His complete disregard for the suffering he caused was evident when he continued to deny his actions in the face of undeniable evidence.
This a girl I used to mess with, you feel me? Like, so I don't know what to say about that. I feel like if they people felt like this, they spreading the rumors through the internet. Everybody try to bring you down when they really don't even know what's going on.
So the girl who got killed, that wasn't even your baby mama.
Nah, the one from now, like the one that they saying, it could have been a possibility. You feel me?
So that was your current girlfriend?
I ain't got no girlfriend at all. You feel me? Only thing is my wife. That's the only girl, you feel me, that ever, my wife.
In a live stream video, Justin mockingly called Ratia someone he used to mess with and denied any involvement in her death, even though it was clear he was the perpetrator. In fact, Justin even accused Ratia's family of spreading rumors and suggested there was only a possibility that he could be the father of Ratia's unborn child. Justin even went as far as to taunt Ratia's family by liking their posts about his being wanted for murder, a disturbing act of contempt and indifference to the loss of his former partner and the mother of his child. For the grieving family, these actions were a form of mockery that prolonged their suffering. The family struggled with the fact that Justin remained free for days, continuing to torment them from behind his screen. But there was something Justin didn't know at the time. The entire incident was caught on a doorbell camera at Ratia's parents' home. This video evidence was crucial in connecting Justin to the crime, as it not only showed his presence at the scene, but also helped confirm his identity. Despite his hiding, he would soon be caught. On October 19, 2023, after 10 days on the run, Justin Rene Lewis was finally captured on October 19, 2023 in Forest Park, Georgia. His arrest came after an intense manhunt, where he had been evading capture by changing locations and using social media to taunt the authorities and Ratia's family. Despite his online taunting, including denying involvement in Ratia's death, Justin was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in the shooting of Ratia and the death of her unborn child. This arrest brought a small sense of relief to Ratia's family, who had endured emotional anguish while he roamed free for days after the murder. After Justin's capture, the DeKalb County Police and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, GBI, ramped up their efforts to build a solid case against him. The doorbell camera footage, which captured the moment of Ratia's murder, played a crucial role in confirming Justin's identity and his presence at the scene. This key evidence, along with witness testimony from Ratia's family, was irrefutable proof of his involvement in the crime. But investigators quickly uncovered more disturbing facts. Not only did they have evidence of his violent tendencies from his past relationship, but Justin's online behavior post-murder also revealed his lack of remorse. After killing Ratia, he taunted her family on social media, claiming he was being framed and mocking their grief. This only added to the emotional trauma of the family as they saw Justin continue to live his life while their beloved Ratia was gone. The police were also alarmed by the fact that Justin had previously attempted to shoot Ratia before, months earlier, when he had tried to force her to terminate her pregnancy. The fact that this incident wasn't reported to the authorities raised questions about how much earlier the system could have intervened to stop this tragedy. Justin Lewis faces first-degree murder charges, along with multiple felony counts. The case against him was strong. At his initial court appearance, Justin was denied bond. This decision meant that Justin would remain in jail while awaiting trial, where he would be held accountable for Ratia's murder. The fact that Justin had not been charged in his ex-wife's death in 2017 left many wondering if justice for Sydney Dalcour, his late wife, had been overlooked. Some speculated that had he been properly investigated back then, Ratia's murder might have been prevented. As the case progresses, Justin will face a trial where the court will decide his fate. If convicted of first-degree murder, Justin could face life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The severity of the crime and his violent history will likely play a key role in the sentencing. The DeKalb County community was left reeling from the murder of Ratia Herd, a loving mother whose life was cut short in the most horrific way.
On the night of January 30th, 2023, a popular rapper lured his 22-year-old girlfriend, who was carrying his child, into what she thought was a celebration of his release from jail. Instead, she was killed after the rapper said he did not want anything to do with the unborn baby. Just hours later, a chilling 911 call reported a pregnant woman lying unresponsive in the Easton Park subdivision of New Tampa. When officers arrived, they found a scene that was nothing short of devastating. The young mother had been shot in the back of the head. Nearby, her 18-month-old son sat helplessly in the car, only feet from her mother's body. What began as a night of joy quickly unraveled into a brutal betrayal, one that would expose the darkness behind a man who appeared to have everything. This is the life and death of Alana Sims. Her story leads us to Tampa, Florida, a city widely known as a hub for families, tourists, and professionals alike. Yet beneath the surface of its tropical appeal, Tampa grapples with a crime rate that stands about 80% higher than the national average. And it is in this very setting where Alana's life would come to a devastating end. Alana Sims, lovingly called Lana, came into the world on February 13, 2000 in Tampa, Florida, as the daughter of Carlos Pinheiro and Shalevi Sims. She was raised in a big, close-knit household that included not only her parents and siblings, but also extended relatives. As the third of 5 sisters, she grew up in an environment that valued family bonds, which shaped her into a gentle, compassionate, and loving young woman. As she grew, Alana's warmth extended beyond her home and into her school life. She studied at Chamberlain High School in Tampa, Florida, where classmates and teachers remembered her for her kindness and welcoming smile. Like many teenagers, she enjoyed being with friends and finding joy in the everyday moments of youth. When Alana began moving from her teenage years into adulthood, her outlook started to shift. She became more focused on building a life filled with love, stability, and meaning. That vision became clearer when she learned she was expecting her first child. On the journey into motherhood, the father of her baby remained unknown to the public. What was known, however, is that he was not prepared to take on the responsibility of raising a family. This left Alana to embrace parenthood on her own. Even with the challenges of being a single mother, she met them with strength and determination. Motherhood marked a turning point in Alana's life. It became her source of strength, her greatest joy, and the reason she kept moving forward. After the birth of her son, Yazan, her world centered completely on him. She stepped away from nightlife and parties, finding her true happiness in the simple role of being a mother. Friends and relatives often shared that caring for Yazan was more than just a duty for Alana. It was what she loved most. Her commitment to her son was evident to everyone, not only through what she said, but through how she lived. Much of this devotion could be seen in the way she often shared moments of her life as a mother on social media. Yazan was fortunate to have a mother who gave her her all, yet heartbreakingly, he will grow up without memories of her, as Alana's life was cut short by the actions of a man whose choices would alter everything. That man was none other than Billy Bennett Adams III, a 25-year-old man who was originally born in Virginia and grew up in Georgia before relocating to Tampa Bay in 2017 with hopes of building a future for himself. On the surface, Billy appeared to be on a solid path. He earned a degree in science and management from the University of South Florida, yet his true ambition did not lie in academics. Instead, he pursued music and eventually built an identity as a rapper under the name Ace NH. At first, this might have suggested that he had the means and focus to support someone like Alana. But a closer look at his music revealed a darker side. His songs often carried messages about violence and street life, hinting at the troubling behavior he would later embrace in reality. The warning signs surrounding Billy did not stop there. Reports also linked him to the Crips, a well-known criminal gang in the United States. From the very start, it was evident that Billy posed a real danger. Yet despite these concerns, Alana chose to stay in the relationship with him, a decision that would ultimately cost her life. At first, their relationship appeared normal. Billy seemed attentive, involved, and even accepting of Alana's first child, or at least that was the impression Alana held. For someone like Alana, already navigating motherhood and searching for stability, that sense of reassurance likely meant a great deal. For a time, Billy gave her something she had longed for, the comfort of believing she was not facing her journey alone. With time, Alana started to imagine a shared future with Billy. The relationship quickly grew more serious, and before long, she gave birth to his child. In her heart, Alana believed this new chapter would strengthen their bond and bring them closer together. What she didn't realize was that this moment would instead open the door to something far darker. To understand why, we need to look back at Billy's past, a past filled with darkness that should have served as a warning for Alana to walk away. On the night of February 20th, 2020, years before Alana and Billy even crossed paths, Billy was involved in a crime so deliberate and merciless that it shocked all who learned of it. That evening, Billy was inside a Tampa recording studio. He was there to work on music with his friend, Joseph Meeks. At the same time, two other men, Traven Albury and Daniel Thompson, happened to be at the studio as well. On that night, Billy claimed he heard Traven and Daniel making plans to rob his friend Joseph, the studio owner. What happened next crossed every line of reason. He shot both of them in the back of their heads, execution style. In just moments, 2 lives were taken. Rather than calling for help or staying at the scene, he ran, abandoning Joseph in the studio with the bodies of his friends.
I pulled out my gun and I shot Mr. Albury in fear of Mr. Meeks being shot or myself being shot.
Investigators quickly connected the dots, and Billy was arrested and charged with double murder. What followed was a drawn-out legal fight that dragged on for years. Billy's defense rested on a self-defense claim. He insisted that he acted after hearing the 2 men discuss robbing Joseph, the studio owner, and that his only intent was to shield his friend. But the evidence told another story, one far more troubling. Both victims were shot from behind, each with a single shot to the head. This wasn't a struggle. It wasn't an exchange of gunfire. The scene resembled an execution, directly contradicting the idea of self-defense. Joseph Meeks, the very person Billy said he was protecting, was left behind in shock. Surrounded by silence and blood, he had no idea what had just happened. Eventually, he called 911, and when authorities arrived, they found no trace of a fight, no weapons belonging to the victims, and no sign of Billy. The legal process stretched on for almost 3 years, and during that entire period, Billy held firm to his claims. He entered a plea of not guilty, faced the courtroom, and even testified on his own behalf. But this is where the story grows even more unsettling. Throughout the arrests, court appearances, and media coverage, Alana was fully aware. She knew Billy had run from the crime scene, leaving his friend to handle the devastating aftermath. She knew the man she welcomed into her life was accused of committing a brutal double murder, and still, she chose to remain. Alana didn't just stay by his side, she supported him. She ignored the accusations and held on to the version of Billy she wanted to believe in. What made the situation more troubling was that Billy spent the entirety of their relationship behind bars, awaiting trial. How Alana first came into contact with him remains unclear, and so does the question of how she later became pregnant. Meanwhile, her family had no knowledge of the relationship, unaware that she was secretly tied to a man facing such serious charges. Despite all this, their relationship carried on. In the months that followed, Alana visited him in jail, wrote him letters, and kept in touch through calls, never sharing the truth with her family. It was a secret she kept close, one that would ultimately lead to her tragic end. Alana's love for Billy was unwavering. To her, the only barrier between them was the trial keeping him confined. Then came the day that changed everything. On the 27th of January, 2023, after nearly 3 years of courtroom battles, the jury delivered its decision. Billy was acquitted of all charges connected to the double homicide. The verdict declared him not guilty, and he left the courthouse a free man. The verdict left Alana filled with happiness, believing she could finally be with the man she loved.
Jury find as follows: to count 2 of the charge of murder in the first degree, Trayvon Albury. The defendant is not guilty.
To her, his freedom meant the start of a new chapter together. What she didn't realize was that this moment would instead open the door to something far darker. On the 30th of January 2023, just a few days after Billy's acquittal,
tragedy struck. That evening, Alana left her home under the impression that she was heading to a celebration for Billy's release, an event she had been eagerly anticipating. But by around 10 p.m.,
the night she thought would bring joy ended in horror. The Tampa Police Department received a disturbing 911 call about a pregnant woman found unresponsive near the Easton Park subdivision in New Tampa. Responding officers soon arrived and were met with a heartbreaking scene. Lying on the ground was Alana, lifeless. A closer look revealed she'd been shot in the back of the head, yet the discovery grew even more unbearable. Just a few feet away, her 18-month-old son was found inside her car, sitting near his mother's body. The child had been there the entire time. Although physically unharmed, the reality remained devastating. He had lost the one person who had been his entire world. Not long after Alana's body was identified, word of her death began to spread rapidly across the community. Her family was contacted, and the weight of the tragedy hit them with crushing force. The loss of Alana was crushing, but what tormented her loved ones most were the questions that lingered. How had she ended up in that area? Who could have carried out such a violent act against her? And, perhaps most disturbing of all, why? Detectives immediately began their investigation, combing through the scene and surrounding area for anything that might point to the person behind the crime. Yet the path toward answers proved to be painfully slow and filled with uncertainty. For Alana's family, the confusion was overwhelming. They had no idea who could be responsible for such a cruel act. Even more puzzling, they didn't know why Alana had been in that neighborhood, given that she had lived in Tampa her entire life. But soon, investigators uncovered a key lead that changed everything. As the case unfolded, one name quickly rose to the forefront: Billy Adams. For law enforcement, this immediately raised concern. Only days earlier, he had been cleared of charges in a double homicide, and now another death seemed to circle back to him. The deeper investigators dug, the more they learned about Billy's connection to Alana. When questioned, he gave statements that only fueled suspicion. At first, Billy denied any involvement in Alana's death. He insisted he hadn't spoken to her or even seen her for months. Taking it a step further, he distanced himself completely by denying that he was the father of her unborn baby. It didn't take long before cracks appeared in Billy's account. When questioned about his whereabouts on the night of January 30th, the night Alana was killed, he insisted that he had stayed home the entire evening and hadn't gone anywhere until the following day. But evidence quickly challenged that claim. Security footage and records from the gated community where he lived revealed otherwise. Investigators learned that Billy had actually taken his father's car out that night. When confronted with his contradiction, he shifted his story, saying he had gone out with friends and even provided a video to back up his claim. The problem was, the video was fake. Police determined it had been staged and recorded 2 days later, on February 1st, not on the night of the murder as Billy had claimed. With his story unraveling, suspicion around Billy intensified. Detectives then obtained a warrant to search his phone, hoping it might shed more light. What they uncovered became the turning point in the case. Inside his messages, police found clear evidence of recent communication between Billy and Alana, directly disproving his claim that they hadn't spoken in months. But what followed in those records was even more disturbing. On the 29th of January 2023, just 1 day before Alana's death, Billy had sent a chilling text to another woman, Lakenya Brantley. The message read, "Tomorrow, this is done." In that same conversation, Brantley had voiced concern about Alana's pregnancy. Billy made it clear he wanted no life that included Alana or her unborn child. Brantley even tried to dissuade him, replying, "This ain't the way, baby." This exchange revealed a possible motive for the crime. And yet, the evidence tying Billy to Alana's murder grew even stronger when investigators uncovered something even chilling. From the phone data, investigators uncovered that Billy had searched for driving directions to the Easton Park subdivision, the exact area where Alana's body was later discovered. Even more telling, this search was made on the 30th of January 2023 at 6:43 p.m., only a few hours before the 911 call reporting her death. This evidence was devastating. His alibi had already unraveled, and now his digital trail placed him near the crime scene, while his own messages revealed a motive. Still, Billy refused to cooperate fully with detectives. Instead, he gave a confession that only deepened the horror of the case. When confronted with the mounting proof, Billy finally admitted he had seen Alana that night, but rather than taking responsibility, he spun another version of events. He told police that he acted in self-defense, the very same explanation that had helped him walk free from the double homicide trial weeks earlier. According to Billy, Alana had aimed a gun at him, and during a struggle,
he managed to gain control and fire the fatal shot. Investigators, however, immediately found contradictions in his account. Pressed for more details, Billy changed his story again. This time, he said Alana did have a gun, but he had already taken it from her before he pulled the trigger. He admitted to shooting her in the back of the head, an act that could hardly be seen as self-defense. When asked about the weapon, he coldly stated that he had discarded it on his way home. By now, his shifting narratives left little doubt. He acknowledged being at the scene, he acknowledged firing the gun, he acknowledged knowing that Alana was pregnant, and that he could have been the father. Taken together, his conflicting statements, the damning phone evidence, the clear motive, and his violent past involving the deaths of 2 men, the case against him was undeniable. On the 8th of February 2023, authorities arrested Billy Adams. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder, one for Alana Sims and another for her unborn child. The most chilling part, he had only been out of jail for 9 days. After being acquitted of a double homicide, Billy Adams was once again behind bars, this time accused of killing the woman who stood by him, along with the child they shared. At present, Billy remains in custody without bond at the Falkenberg Road Jail in Hillsborough County, Florida, meaning he will stay locked up until the court reaches a final decision in his case. Despite the evidence against him, Billy once again entered a plea of not guilty. Yet his earlier acquittal has drawn renewed criticism. One juror from that prior trial revealed that no one on the panel actually believed Billy's version of events. His release then had come down to the prosecution's failure to establish a clear motive. This time, however, the situation is starkly different. Only 9 days after walking free, he stood accused of murdering a woman who believed in him, who thought she was attending a celebration, and who was carrying his child. As of now, no official trial date has been announced, but pre-trial hearings are already moving forward. The presiding judge has ordered that Billy remain jailed without bond, citing both the gravity of the charges and the risk he poses to the community. Meanwhile, Alana's loved ones are left in unimaginable grief. The deepest wound is carried by her 18-month-old son, who will grow up without his mother. He lost the one person who had surrounded him with love, care, and stability. Beyond her family, the entire community feels the weight of this loss, knowing that a young child has been denied the love every mother deserves to give. To honor Alana's life, a funeral service was held at Eichen's Funeral Home, located at 2708 E. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Tampa, Florida. Friends, relatives, and community members gathered to pay tribute, celebrating the warmth and kindness she shared, even as they faced the reality of her life being taken far too soon.
We're at Neiman Marcus. VH1 comes on in a week. Let it go, but hit the floor, okay?
Welcome to Miami.
Miami.
Ow. You lost weight. Stephanie was an absolute angel. She really was. Everybody she's ever met. She's brought so many of these people into my life. She's connected so many people together. And she's just loved. She will never, ever, ever, ever be forgotten. She is so loved.
And he said, there's something else you don't know. He started shooting, then he shot her, and then he put the gun to his head. And that's what it was. Then I had to bury my best friend.
On the morning of December 8th, 2014, screams and gunshots shattered the quiet inside a Los Angeles apartment complex. Minutes later, the lifeless body of a beloved actress and dancer lay inside, her promising career violently cut short by the man who vowed to love her forever. She was 30-year-old Stephanie Moseley, a rising star known for her role on VH1's Hit the Floor and her electrifying performances alongside Beyoncé, Chris Brown, Usher, Britney Spears, and Janet Jackson. But behind her success was a marriage unraveling in jealousy and rage. Her husband, rapper Earl Hayes, believed he had uncovered a secret he could not live with, the secret of her blazing success. And instead of walking away, he chose devastation. What unfolded in that luxury apartment was even more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. This is the life and death of Stephanie Moseley. This story unfolds in the city of Los Angeles, California, USA, a vibrant and diverse metropolis home to longtime locals, newcomers from around the globe, industry professionals, and creative souls. Its landscape spans sunny beaches, towering skyscrapers, historic districts, and quiet residential neighborhoods, offering a mix of glamour and grounded familiarity. In 2014, crime across the city began to trend downward, with both violent crimes and property crimes showing modest declines compared to earlier years. Though some neighborhoods still face challenges, overall, the city was moving toward a safer reputation while holding on to its dynamic, ever-changing character. But this was not the case for Stephanie. Stephanie Elise Moseley was born on February 14, 1984 in Vancouver, British Columbia. To her family, she wasn't just their Valentine's Day baby, she was a child destined for the stage. From the time she could walk, Stephanie moved to the rhythm, mimicking music videos on TV and performing for her relatives. Her parents recognized her talent early and enrolled her in formal training. Stephanie studied at the Pacific Arts Ballet in Vancouver, the Kirkwood Academy of Performing Arts in Nanaimo, and Dan's Mode Productions in Burnaby, where instructors quickly saw something rare: discipline, humility, and an effortless presence that commanded attention. Rachel Poirier, one of her teachers, recalled that Stephanie wasn't just another student. She was someone everyone admired, the kind of dancer who elevated a whole class. Her peers looked up to her, and instructors knew she was destined to succeed. But talent alone wasn't enough. Stephanie worked tirelessly, often staying late after rehearsals to refine her craft. By 2002, at just 13 years old, she was ready to chase her dream on the biggest stage. She packed her bags and moved to Los Angeles, determined to make it in an industry where most never even get noticed. The move wasn't easy. LA was a city of dreamers, but also of fierce competition. Stephanie, however, was relentless. Slowly but surely, she began booking gigs. First came small performances, then major tours. She became a backup dancer for music icons including Beyoncé, Mariah Carey, Usher, Chris Brown, and Janet Jackson. She even contributed choreography for films like The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 1. Each step built her reputation as one of the most dependable and captivating performers in the business.
For the Devil Girls, like for this new dance TV series that was going to be filmed in LA, and I literally was like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. This is what I wanted. It's what I worked for. This is it. I was like, this is mine. Everything about it, I was like, it's mine. It's mine. It just is mine. And I went to the audition and I was like, nope, it's mine. And I got called for another audition. I was like, nope, it's mine. And I went to act. I got sides for an acting role. I was like, yes, it's mine.
She didn't just dance behind the stars, she shone in her own right. Eventually, Stephanie transitioned from music stages to television and film. She landed roles in projects like Idlewood, Sparkle, Mirror Mirror, and The Best Thanksgiving Ever. But her breakout moment came when she was cast as a series regular on VH1's Hit the Floor. While she played a member of the high-energy Devil Girls dance team, Stephanie showcased not only her dance, but also her acting abilities. It was the moment she had always dreamed of, her hard work finally paying off. Colleagues adored her not just for her professionalism, but for her warmth. She was known as someone who lit up every room she walked into, someone who left lasting impressions on both fans and friends. Her friends described her as humble despite her achievements, a woman who never forgot her Canadian roots, even as she climbed Hollywood's ladder. But Stephanie's personal life told a different story. In 2008, she married Earl Hayes, a rapper and songwriter who was part of Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s money team Entourage. Earl had collaborated with artists like Alicia Keys and the Pussycat Dolls, and he carried the swagger of someone who had brushed shoulders with fame. To outsiders, their relationship seemed glamorous, a Hollywood dancer and a rising rapper sharing a life of opportunity and connections. The couple even appeared together in Mayweather's documentary, 30 Days in May. But behind closed doors, things weren't as picture-perfect as they seemed. Friends would later describe the relationship as tumultuous, weighed down by arguments, accusations of infidelity, and Earl's deep insecurities about Stephanie's success. As her career soared, his slowed, and that imbalance only fueled the tension between them. At times, they tried to reconcile, but according to those close to them, trust had lessened. Earl reportedly believed Stephanie had been unfaithful in the past, even accusing her of having an affair with singer Trey Songz. Although the couple reunited after periods of separation, those suspicions never disappeared. And then came the terrible morning of December 8th, 2014. On around 7:30 a.m., residents of the Palazzo East apartments in the Park La Brea area were startled by the sound of a woman screaming. The cries were followed by rapid gunshots, and neighbors later said they heard at least 10 shots echoing through the halls. When officers rushed into the Park La Brea apartment complex that December morning, the scene was unlike anything they expected. Minutes earlier, neighbors had called 911 after hearing blood-curdling screams, followed by a volley of gunshots. As they approached the unit, they heard more gunshots ring out from inside. Realizing this was more than a routine call, they summoned the LAPD SWAT team. By the time the heavily armed squad breached the apartment, the outcome was already clear, and it was not pretty. Inside, the lifeless bodies of 30-year-old Stephanie Moseley and 34-year-old Earl Hayes lay in a tragic stillness. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. A handgun rested near Earl's body, providing detectives with their first clue about what had just unfolded.
This morning, a neighbor calling 911 after hearing gunshots and screaming from a woman in a next-door apartment. We're told the initial call said that as many as 10 shots were heard. Patrol officers arrived on scene. They entered the apartment. They found a back bedroom door closed, and when they tried to enter that back door, that's when they heard an additional 2 shots. The SWAT team was called in. They came in as a precaution, and when they finally entered the apartment, they found a man and woman dead from gunshot wounds.
But what investigators would uncover next painted a far darker picture than anyone could have imagined. As detectives secured the scene, the details began to emerge. Stephanie had been struck multiple times, her wounds leaving no chance of survival. Earl's injuries showed he had turned the weapon on himself after ending his wife. In just a matter of minutes, a glamorous Hollywood couple had become the center of one of Los Angeles' most chilling cases. However, the most shocking revelation wasn't discovered in the apartment itself. It came from one of Earl's closest friends. Floyd Mayweather, the world-famous boxer, admitted to detectives that he had been on a FaceTime call with Earl in the moments before the shooting. Floyd explained that Earl had been spiraling, consumed by many insane suspicions. He had strongly believed that Stephanie had been unfaithful. He ranted about past rumors, including her alleged involvement with singer Trey Songz, something that had haunted him for years. According to Floyd, he tried desperately to calm Earl down. He urged him to step away, to think about the consequences, but the call ended abruptly. Moments later, Floyd's worst fears were realized when news broke that Stephanie had been killed.
I was sitting with Melissa Brown. My best friend called me on FaceTime. We was talking a little bit. He put Stephanie on the phone. I talked to her, and I could tell that they both were. It looked like they both were doing drugs and drinking real heavy. I could tell they'd been up all night. They was talking. I heard the bath water running. He put it on FaceTime. He got back on the phone. I'm kind of getting choked up from this. So then I said, "Why you calling me so early in the morning? How you know I'm up?" He said, "Because I love you." And he said, "There's something else you don't know." And I was like, "Huh?" And then he reached down and put out a gun. I said, "Man, what are you doing with that gun?" He started shooting. Then he shot her. And then he put the gun to his head. And that's what it was. Then I had to bury my best friend.
But then, as investigators dug deeper, another disturbing detail came into focus. Neighbors told officers that before the first gunshots, they heard Stephanie screaming for help. Then came the deafening bursts of gunfire, followed by silence. Witnesses said the apartment went quiet, only for more shots to ring out shortly after. This aligned with what police themselves had experienced, arriving to hear additional gunfire before SWAT moved in. The LAPD treated the case cautiously, fearing the possibility of an active shooter or hostage situation. Once inside, however, they found that no one else had been involved. Investigators collected everything they could: the handgun, shell casings, and signs of a brief struggle. The autopsy later revealed that Stephanie had been struck multiple times in her upper body. Earl's wounds confirmed that he had turned the weapon on himself after killing his wife. Toxicology tests were ordered, though final results would take weeks. The evidence pointed to Earl acting alone in a fit of rage, but even with the crime scene secured, one question loomed large. Why did this marriage, once seen as glamorous and loving, collapse into such horrific violence? Detectives began piecing together the couple's history. Earl, who was once a promising rapper signed to Mayweather's label, had seen his career stall. Stephanie, on the other hand, was flourishing, appearing in VH1's Hit the Floor, securing roles in films, and dancing alongside icons like Beyoncé, Usher, and Chris Brown. To friends, she embodied success. But to Earl, her rising fame may have been a reminder of his own stalled ambitions. According to people close to the couple, jealousy and mistrust were constant shadows in their relationship. They had reportedly separated 2 years earlier after rumors of an affair, though they reconciled. Friends noticed, however, that Earl never seemed to let go of his suspicions. This imbalance between Stephanie's rising star and Earl's frustrations created a pressure cooker environment behind closed doors. And on December 8, 2014, it finally exploded. Meanwhile, the entertainment industry was reeling. News outlets across the world reported that a VH1 star had been killed in her own home. Colleagues from Hit the Floor described Stephanie as a vibrant force on set. Dancers and musicians who had toured with her shared memories of her kindness and talent. Rihanna posted a tribute, Ashley Tisler remembered their time together on Hellcats, and Alison Holliker from So You Think You Can Dance called her a true friend. But what detectives discovered next made the crime even more unsettling. Sources close to the couple revealed that Stephanie and Earl were considering separating again. Earl, however, was becoming increasingly erratic and paranoid. He had truly accused her repeatedly of infidelity, unable to forgive or move on from old rumors. For detectives, this pointed to a motive rooted in jealousy and control. What made the case even more tragic was that friends described Stephanie as someone who radiated joy. She was known for uplifting others, mentoring younger dancers, and carrying a positive spirit into every room.
The thought that her life had ended, not at the hands of a stranger, but by the man who vowed to protect her, was almost impossible to comprehend. Yet, the truth, however devastating, could no longer be denied. Investigators concluded that on that December morning, Earl's suspicions finally overwhelmed him. In a burst of rage, he shot Stephanie multiple times before turning the gun on himself. Floyd Mayweather's FaceTime call provided chilling insight into Earl's mindset, confirming that his actions were driven by jealousy and despair. With both Stephanie and Earl gone, the LAPD quickly closed the legal side of the case. There would be no arrest, no trial, no sentencing. But the emotional toll was far from over. Because for Stephanie's family, friends, and fans, the tragedy left behind a haunting question. How could someone so full of life and success fall victim to the very person she loved? And as the entertainment community prepared tributes, her loved ones faced the heartbreaking reality that they would never see her take the stage again. But justice in the truest sense would not come easily, because what followed in the aftermath exposed wounds that could never fully heal. In the days following Stephanie's tragic death, the entertainment world fell into mourning. Friends, family, and fans struggled to process the sudden loss of a woman whose life had been defined by her artistry, her kindness, and her vibrant spirit. VH1 released a heartfelt statement. They described her as not just a performer, but as a beloved member of their family. Cast members and crew echoed that sentiment, recalling how she lit up every rehearsal and filming day with her energy. Her absence, they said, was immeasurable. Meanwhile, fellow performers who had shared the stage with her began posting tributes across social media. Rihanna shared a picture of Stephanie and remembered the times they had danced together. Chris Brown, who had toured with her, called her a light in the industry. Ashley Tisdale, her co-star from Hellcats, reminded fans how much fun she had working alongside her. Dancer Alison Holker wrote about the friendship and support they had shared on set. Each message carried the same note of heartbreak. The world had lost a rare and special talent. But among the grief, there was also anger. For those who loved her most, the pain came with the knowledge that Stephanie's life was taken in such a senseless and violent way. Friends admitted they had seen the cracks in their relationship with Earl, but none imagined it would end in such horror. Eva Marcial, a longtime friend, described Stephanie as an angel whose life had not always been easy in recent years, but never seemed destined for this. To her and to many, the tragedy underscored how quickly jealousy and violence could erupt behind closed doors.
Stephanie was an absolute angel. She really was. Everybody she's ever met. She's brought so many of these people into my life. She's connected so many people together. And She's just loved. She will never, ever, ever, ever be forgotten. She is so loved.
And everyone has their problems, but if you're asking if anyone knew that, something would come to this, hell no. It was the last of what anybody would have thought. I thought it was a lie when I got the phone call.
But even as her story became part of a wider conversation, her family was left to plan the heartbreaking task of saying goodbye. Stephanie's funeral took place in Canada, where she had been born and raised. Her loved ones gathered to honor her life, remembering not just the celebrity she became, but the humble, determined young woman who had started her journey in dance studios across Vancouver. Former teachers spoke of her dedication and her humility, recalling how she would stay long after class ended to perfect her moves. Childhood friends shared memories of her laughter, her warmth, and her determination to follow her dreams. Her family described her as a daughter who never forgot her roots, returning home as often as she could despite her demanding career. They remembered the way she cherished her parents and siblings, and how much pride she carried in representing her hometown on the international stage. At the funeral, the grief was overwhelming, but so too was the pride. Stephanie had accomplished what so many only dream of. She had made it to Hollywood, and she had left her mark. The tragedy was that her story ended far too soon. But the truth, however painful, was that her legacy would not fade. In the months after her death, tributes poured in from across the entertainment industry. Fellow performers dedicated performances in her honor. Her colleagues on Hit the Floor carried their memory with them into the show's next season. Fans of the series often wrote that they continued watching because it felt like a way of keeping her spirit alive. Eventually, her name became not just a memory, but a call for awareness. She was remembered as a woman who had given everything to her art, but whose life became a cautionary tale about love turned destructive.
Money always on my mind, do it for my mother, always I'm gon' bank the cash. Call me always, I can make your family sing a lullaby. I'm certified, he murder type, my youngest really known the shit. Make her play like man, real life, he stick that PS5. They behind me. They gonna kill me, y'all. I'm gonna make them kill me, y'all. Today is the day I die. Today is the day I die, y'all.
On the morning of December 28th, 2024, a famous rapper was on live stream filming his own death just moments after he attempted to kill his own wife. The man that you are seeing in this video is the 36-year-old Ontavius Brown, who is being chased by the police. In the live stream, he could be heard saying that it was going to be the day he was going to die, and just moments later, he crashes into one man and two cars, leaving two people dead at the end of the day. Just hours earlier, police had received disturbing reports. He shot his own wife in front of their children, and before the police could even catch him, he drove away, leading to the fatal police chase that would leave an entire community reeling. This is the life and death of Ontavius "Get It Brown" Brown, and the people whose lives collided with his final choices. Columbia, South Carolina is a city that carries history and ambition side by side. Churches sit next to college campuses, small businesses thrive beside music studios, and neighborhoods try to hold on to peace while the pressures of life stir beneath the surface. By December, holiday lights filled the streets, but in one apartment complex on Blossom Street, tension was building toward tragedy. The man at the center of this story was Ontavius J. Brown, known in music circles as Get It Brown. Born on October 5, 1988 in Anniston, Alabama, Ontavius grew up far from the spotlight. Details about his early family life are not widely available, but what is known paints the picture of a boy raised in the South, carrying the same hopes and hardships that shaped so many from that part of the country. This lack of public record only makes his later story feel more personal, as if the world only began to notice him once the music and ambition took hold. What is clear is that he eventually moved to Columbia, where he attended Lower Richland High School. It was there that his reputation as someone with music in his blood began to take shape. He rapped, recorded, and performed locally, carving out a presence in the city's hip-hop scene. Later, he tried to expand beyond music, launching GB Tequila, a liquor brand tied to his rap persona. He had ambitions that established the kind of man he was. But out of everything in his life, friends say nothing brightened Ontavius more than being a father. The identity of his son's mother is not publicly available, and little has been shared about her, but becoming a parent gave him a grounding that music and business never could. It connected the performer back to the man, and his devotion to his child was often visible on social media and in conversations, a rare softness that tied back to who he was beneath the stage name and the business persona.
Even though I keep a gun, see your ass, he put his hat, you shaking like you got Parkinson. Took off like a track star. Should've seen that nigga run, speeding on your fucking knock for holes all in your car. I used to shoot them first.
Posts and conversations showed a man who deeply loved being a father. But right beside that devotion stood another image, the artist who rapped about respect, about war, about never letting anyone play with his name. To some, he was a hardworking entrepreneur. To others, he was a man quick to anger, ruled by pride. It was within this fragile balance between the softness of a father and the hardness of a man unwilling to bend that the next chapter began to take shape. The calm before the storm was fading, and a new figure was about to enter the spotlight, one whose presence would change everything. Her name was Nudira Tapia. Born on July 28, 1986, she was the creator and host of the most popular podcast, a woman who had built her brand from scratch. A mother of two from a previous relationship, she carried the weight of both family and ambition with a determination that inspired many. Friends described her as focused and protective, a woman who seemed unshakable in public, but whose strength was rooted in the everyday role of being a mother. For 2 years, Ontavius and Tapia shared her apartment on Blossom Street. He paid bills there, neighbors recognized him often, and her children grew used to his presence. What appeared from the outside to be stability would soon prove to be anything but. From the outside, they looked like a power couple. Both were entrepreneurs, both chasing dreams, both using social media to showcase their brands. But behind closed doors, the reality was more complicated. Arguments grew sharper, tension built with every passing day. Small disagreements turned into shouting matches, nights filled with silence gave way to mornings filled with resentment, and the weight of unsaid words pressed heavier on both of them. What once looked like stability from the outside now felt like a storm gathering behind closed doors, a storm that everyone could sense was about to break. And then, just as December closed in, the calm finally snapped. Tapia decided the relationship was over. She told Brown to move out, but he agreed that he would be gone by the end of the year. On the surface, it sounded like a clean break, but beneath that surface, emotions were bubbling into something dangerous, like pressure building in a sealed container ready to explode. Arguments that had once stayed inside their apartment began spilling out onto social media for the world to see. Promises of leaving turned into long nights of tension. On paper, it looked like the end of a relationship, but in reality, it was the start of something far darker, a descent no one around them could stop. The relationship's decline spilled onto social media for all to see. On Christmas Eve, while families across Colombia gathered for dinners and gifts, Brown posted messages that sounded less like holiday cheer and more like threats. "When I know I'm righteous, I'll go to war with whoever and die about it. Win, lose, or draw, I'll throw it all on the line." It was a chilling message, one that made it clear that his anger was growing. Tapia's mother saw it and responded directly. In a public comment, she called Brown a violent man and said if anything happened to her daughter, everyone would know who to blame. It was not a private warning, it was a loud alarm posted for everyone to see. The community watched, comments poured in, and rumors began to spread. Some mentioned alleged infidelity, others accused Brown of hiding parts of his life. Whether true or not, those words only added fuel to the fire. And in the middle of it all, Tapia herself made the danger plain. When asked online if she was okay, she responded, "No, my life is and others are in danger." Those brief and urgent words should have been impossible to ignore. Brown did not back down. He went live on Facebook to deliver his side. He spoke about loyalty, about betrayal, about standing firm on principle. He said no one would play with his feelings or his name. To some, it sounded like venting. To others, it sounded like a warning drum, beating louder and faster with each word.
Yes, you feel me? It's your boy. The laughing stock. The pitiful fool. Jokes on me. Whole time this shit been a setup. People don't want to see you be better than they can even imagine they damn self. You know? Growing up, a nigga went through a lot of shit. Some shit I caused, some shit I didn't. We all make some choices and decisions. But you know, like they say, once you get in them streets, them bitches swallow your hoe. Allow other people dead weight and issues and situations to keep you bound and in bondage. Don't allow fake love and obligations and expectations. Give a fuck what you think about me. You ain't lived my shoes. Your story, my story, my story. You feel how you feel, nigga, I feel how I feel. I'm a man just like you, bitch. I put on my pants and my 2 shoes, too. But one thing I ain't gonna let nobody do. Nobody. You feel me? Is play with my feelings, my heart, my emotions. Anybody know me, they know I step with everything I do, you feel me? Because I'm passionate about everything I do. If I put my time in, if I put my money in, my blood, sweat, and tears in, I gotta write about it. You feel me? Don't let nobody undermine you. You know who you are. You know what you built. If you went through this shit by yourself, yeah, for sure, you know. It's always good to network, to show love, meet, grow, and build. But stand on your principles. Stand on the shit that make you you. I want y'all to keep y'all head up, stay striving, move righteous, you feel me? The love is love, and we're gonna keep rocking. Let's get it.
By the final week of December, their apartment no longer felt like a home. It felt like a pressure cooker. The children were there, hearing too much. The bills and businesses were still hanging in the air. The relationship was over, but neither side had truly walked away. Some stories end at this point with silence, with separation. This one pushed past the edge. The online posts kept coming. The whispers grew louder. One relative would later say Brown spoke about catching Tapia cheating but wanted to keep things calm for the holidays, especially with his son around. But whatever calm he wanted never arrived. Instead, the tension kept rising, the fear stayed, the children remained caught in the middle. And those 4 words, "I'll die about it," hung heavy over everything. Tapia tried to keep moving forward, promoting her podcast expo for January. She kept up her public image, announcing venues and plans, but her warnings had already been made clear. She was in danger. There were now 2 stories running side by side. One was public and polished, the other was private and explosive. And soon, only one of them would remain. On the morning of December 28, 2024, the pressure that had been building inside the Blossom Street apartment finally erupted. The day began like any other in Columbia, South Carolina. Children played, neighbors walked their dogs, and families carried on their routines. But behind one apartment door, voices were raised and the sound of rage filled the walls. The storm that had been brewing for weeks was about to break wide open. Ontavius confronted Nudira. His accusations came fast and sharp. Betrayal, dishonesty, disrespect. The anger in his voice made every word heavier than the last. Nudira's children stood frozen, forced to witness their mother being shouted at and struck. When Ontavius pulled a gun and aimed it at her head before sliding it back into his waistband, the man that they had once known as part of their home became something far more terrifying. But the children didn't stay still for long. Fear turned quickly into action, and what happened next would shift the balance of that room. They fought back. Small hands pulled, clawed, and pushed against Ontavius, desperate to protect their mother. One child broke through the bedroom door, trying to get help. In the chaos, Nudira saw her chance. She bolted for the doorway, her children close behind. For a brief second, freedom was just a few steps away. That freedom was cut short. At the threshold, Ontavius pulled his gun again. A single shot cracked through the air. The bullet tore into Nudira's leg, dropping her to the ground. Pain coursed through her body, but her only thought was of her children. Later, she would recall in horror, "I knew I was about to die." Instead of ending her life, Ontavius forced Nudira into a car. Bleeding, terrified, and separated from her children, she was driven away. Behind them, her children were left in an apartment marked with blood and silence. The nightmare had shifted, but it was far from over. Outside, neighbors had heard the shot. Some saw the children crying for help. Calls to 911 poured in, and Columbia police raced toward the complex. But Ontavius was already moving, taking Nudira to the hospital, the gun still visible, his fury still unchecked. At the hospital doors, staff immediately recognized the danger. A wounded woman, a man gripping her tightly, the air tense with threat. As they rushed Nudira toward care, she grabbed a nurse's hand and whispered in desperation, "He shot me. Please don't let him kill my kids." Those words carried more urgency than any medical alarm. Staff tried to stall him, buying time for police, but Ontavius grew restless, threatening to return to the children and finish what he started. The situation was spinning toward disaster. Meanwhile, officers arrived at Blossom Street, finding blood smeared across the floor and terrified children recounting the horror they had just lived through. Their words confirmed what police feared. This was only the beginning.
Back at the hospital, Ontavius slipped away before police could arrive. He vanished into Columbia's streets, speeding off as an urgent APB was issued, armed and dangerous. Online, fragments of the story spread like wildfire. Screenshots of his posts resurfaced. Warnings that had been dismissed now looked like prophecy. The city braced itself. The storm was loose, and no one knew where it would strike next. Soon after, officers spotted his vehicle. They approached with weapons drawn, ordering him to stop. Ontavius refused. He slammed his car into reverse and fled. Sirens echoed through the streets. The chase was on. And then, in the middle of it all, he reached for his phone. He went live on Facebook.
They behind me. They gonna kill me, y'all. I'm gonna make them kill me, y'all. Today is the day I die. Today is the day I die, y'all.
The camera shook with every turn as he sped through intersections, his voice steady yet chilling. The comments poured in. Some begged him to stop, to think about his son. Others fed into his unraveling state, their words dark and taunting. The world was now watching, a digital audience to a man spiraling toward destruction. But the danger wasn't his alone. Every second he drove, every light he ignored, every word he streamed pulled strangers into his path. And up ahead, someone with no connection to him at all was about to pay the ultimate price. The chase tore through Columbia's streets like a nightmare no one could stop. Ontavius sped recklessly, his live stream capturing the chaos in real time. The sound of his engine roared under his words. "Today is the day I die." He wasn't slowing down. He wasn't turning back. The city watched as a man announced his own destruction while dragging everyone around him into danger. As his car barreled forward, police shouted warnings over their radios. Intersections ahead were filled with families, workers, and weekend traffic. Each second felt like a countdown. On Facebook, viewers pleaded with him to pull over, to think of his son, but their words couldn't compete with the storm inside him. Ontavius was locked in, determined to end it his way. At one intersection, fate collided with innocence. Ryan Heyman, a 39-year-old man, was driving his Toyota 4Runner with his dog beside him. It was an ordinary morning. He had no idea that death was seconds away. Ontavius ran a red light at full speed. The impact was violent. His Dodge slammed into Ryan's vehicle with crushing force. The Toyota flipped and landed upside down. In an instant, Ryan and his dog were gone, victims who never even saw the danger coming.
Richland County Coroner's Office identified the man police say was responsible for a fatal crash on Saturday.
Columbia police say that officers and Richland County Sheriff's deputies chased 36-year-old Ontavius Brown after investigators say that Brown shot a woman in a domestic-related shooting and then took her to the hospital for treatment and then threatened to go back to the home to harm children in that home.
This led to the chase that resulted in that crash at Garner's Ferry and Hazelwood Roads. The coroner says 52-year-old Ryan Hammond and his dog were killed in the crash.
But the destruction didn't stop there.
Ontavius's car spun out of control, crashing into 2 more vehicles. Glass exploded across the pavement. Screams filled the air. Sirens wailed closer. And through it all, the Facebook livestream continued, capturing twisted metal, smoke, and chaos. Inside his wrecked car, Ontavius raised the gun he had brandished hours earlier. And just moments later, a shot rang out, this time aimed at himself. He struck his own stomach, yet he survived the immediate blow. Paramedics rushed to the scene, finding carnage everywhere. Ryan's lifeless body, injured drivers, and a bleeding Ontavius still clinging to life. They worked to save him, because that is what they were trained to do, even though the devastation had been his choice. He was rushed to the same hospital where Nudira had begged for her children's lives just hours earlier, but this time doctors could not save him. At 12:30 p.m. on December 28, 2024, Ontavius Brown was pronounced dead. Nudira survived her wounds, though her scars would last far longer than the healing of her leg. Her children, who had fought to save her, carried the trauma of that morning. And the family of Ryan Heyman faced the unbearable loss of a loved one whose only mistake was being at the wrong place at the wrong time.